Welcome back to our channel.
Hi everyone, I am Lisa. In our podcast, we break down the complexity of the English language into simple pieces.
And I am Eric. Join us as we explore vocabulary, idioms, and more, all explained in plain English.
Let's make learning English fun
Then,
and accessible.
to provide.
Okay, Eric, please tell us what the words are today.
Okay, Lisa. The first word today is awful. Then we will continue with previous and to provide. Then to get along with. And the final one is to judge a book by its cover.
Okay, let's move on to our first word. What is the first word, Eric?
The first word today is awful.
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 Awful. That sounds intense. What does it mean?
Awful means something that is very bad or unpleasant. It's stronger than just saying bad.
Can you give us some sentences with awful?
Certainly. Imagine someone tasting a new dish. They might say, "This soup tastes awful. I can't eat it." And another person might agree, saying, "I agree. It's too salty."
I see. Can we use awful for things other than food?
Absolutely. It's like watching a movie. That disappoints you. You could say, "The movie was awful. The plot made no sense."
So it's about strong negative feelings.
That's right. And we use it a lot when something is really bad.
I see. Can you provide an example of dialogue using the word awful?
Sure thing. Here's one.
How was your experience at the restaurant last night?
It was awful. The food was cold, and the service was really slow.
I got it. In this dialogue, Sam says that their experience at the restaurant was very bad because the food was cold and the service was slow, right?
That's correct, Lisa. It's common to use the word awful to describe something unpleasant.
Got it. So awful is for when things are really, really bad.
Exactly. Now, let's try a different setting. Imagine you're at a concert, and the singer's performance was terrible, and someone said, "That concert was awful. I want my money back." So, they felt very disappointed by the experience.
Thanks for explaining awful, Eric.
You're welcome, Lisa. By the way, it's a strong word, so use it carefully.
Yes, and we hope our listeners don't have too many awful experiences. Now, Eric, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to deal with awful situations?
One tip is to try to stay positive and focus on the things you can control. It's important to remember that bad days happen to everyone, and they usually pass.
That's great advice, Eric. Staying positive can definitely help us having tough times. Well, it seems like we've covered the word awful quite well. Shall we move on to the next word?
Yes, let's move on to the next word. The next word is previous.
Previous.
Previous. Previous is used to describe something that happened or existed before the present time.
So like when something happened earlier or before something else.
Exactly, Lisa. For example, if you're talking about your last job, you might say, "In my previous job, I worked as a teacher."
I see. Can you provide an example dialogue using the word previous?
Sure, Lisa. Let's listen to the example dialogue.
Did you watch the previous episode of our favorite TV show?
No, I missed it. What happened?
Well, in the previous episode, the main character finally found out the truth about their long-lost sibling, and it was quite a dramatic revelation.
Oh, I can't believe I missed that. I'll have to catch up before the next episode airs.
In this dialogue, Rosa uses the word previous to mean the episode broadcast before the last episode.
That makes sense. So previous is used to talk about something that was before now.
Exactly.
All right. Now let me ask you, Eric, what's something you did in your previous job that you enjoyed?
Well, in my previous job, I enjoyed organizing events and meetings. It was always exciting to see everything go together smoothly.
Organizing events. Sounds like a fun task. Eric, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to use the word previous correctly?
One tip is to remember that previous refers to something that happened or existed before the present moment. So you can use it to talk about past experiences or events.
That's a helpful tip, Eric. Well, it seems like we've covered the word previous quite well. Let's move on to our next word. What is the next word, Eric?
Okay, the next word is to provide.
To provide.
To provide.
To provide is a verb that means to give something needed or wanted. Like when someone gives you food, information, or help.
Exactly, Lisa. It's a very useful word. Let's use it in a sample dialogue.
Amber, did you provide everyone with the agenda for the meeting?
Yes, I provided it via email yesterday.
Great. Providing clear communication is essential for teamwork.
The example is very useful. And it seems to me like a versatile word, isn't it, Eric?
Definitely. And it's not just about information. You can provide help, support, or even a meal.
Eric, can you think of a time when someone provided something important to you?
Sure, Lisa. My friend provided me with a place to stay when I was moving to a new city. It was very helpful.
That's really kind. It's great to have friends who can provide help when we need it.
I agree, Lisa. Why do you think knowing how to use to provide is useful?
Knowing how to use to provide is important because it helps us talk about giving and receiving help, information, and things we need. It's part of being in a community or family.
That's a great explanation, Lisa. And to provide can be used in many situations, right?
Yes, it can. We can talk about providing support, advice, or even a service. For example, the library provides free internet access.
It is a really versatile word. It helps us describe all the ways we can help each other.
Exactly. Learning how to provide for others and finding out when others provide for us builds stronger relationships.
Absolutely, Lisa. Well, I think that covers to provide pretty well. Do you agree?
I do. It's a simple but powerful word that shows the importance of help and support.
Definitely. Okay, now, let's move on to the next word. The next word is to get along with.
To get along with.
To get along with. To get along with is a phrasal verb. It means to have a friendly relationship with someone, or to be able to work well with them.
So like when you get along well with someone, it means you are good friends with them.
Sure. Imagine two co-workers, Alex and Maria. They work in the same office. Alex is very friendly and easygoing, and Maria is also quite pleasant. They chat during coffee breaks, help each other with tasks, and even go out for lunch together. They get along really well.
So to get along with means having a positive relationship with someone. Can we use it in a sentence, Eric?
Absolutely. You could say, I get along really well with my neighbor. We often have dinner together and share gardening tips.
Nice. And what about the preposition with? Why do we say to get along with someone?
Great question, Lisa. The preposition with is essential here. It shows that a positive relationship involves another person. So, when we say to get along with someone, we mean that both people are nice to each other and friendly.
Ah, got it. So it's not just about one person, it's about the relationship between two people. Okay. Can you give an example dialogue using the phrase to get along with?
Absolutely. Here's one.
How do you get along with your new roommate, Brian?
We get along really well. We have similar interests and hobbies, so it's been great living together.
I got it. In this dialogue, Jack asks about Brian's relationship with their roommate, and Brian responds by saying they get along well because they share similar interests.
That's correct, Lisa. It's a common situation where we use the phrase to get along with to describe relationships with others.
All right. Now, let me ask you, Eric, who do you get along with best in your family?
Well, I get along really well with my sister. We have a lot of interests in common and enjoy spending time together.
Ah, having a good relationship with family members is important. Now let me think. Eric, have you ever had to work with someone you didn't get along with? How did you handle it?
Yes, I had. In a previous job, I had to work on a project with a coworker who had a different work style than me. It was challenging, but I tried to communicate openly and find areas where we could agree.
It was great that you tried to find a solution despite the differences. Now, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to get along with others effectively?
One tip is to be respectful and open-minded, and try to see things from the other person's point of view.
That's a great tip, Eric. Thank you for your tips. Okay, shall we move on to the next word?
Yes, the next phrase is to judge a book by its cover.
To judge a book by its cover.
To judge a book by its cover. To judge a book by its cover means to get an opinion about someone or something by their appearance.
Is it like making a decision about a person or thing without knowing much about them?
Yes, Lisa. For example, if you see a person wearing old clothes, you might think they are poor, but that might not be true.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's have a sample dialogue to help understand this better.
Hey, John, have you read this book?
No, I haven't. The cover looks boring.
Don't judge a book by its cover. This book is really interesting and has a great story.
Oh, I see. I'll read it. Thanks for the recommendation.
That's a great example, Eric. It shows how we sometimes have a quick opinion by appearance.
Yeah, and it's not just about books. We might do this with people too.
True. It's important to get to know someone before having an opinion about them.
I agree. Have you ever made a decision about someone by their appearance and later understood you were wrong?
Yes, once I thought a new classmate was unfriendly because he looked serious. But later I found out he was really kind and helpful.
That's a good lesson. We shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
It just shows how important it is not to think about others quickly. Now, Eric, do you have any tips for our listeners on how to avoid judging a book by its cover?
One tip is to keep an open mind and give people a chance to show who they really are before you have an opinion about them.
Definitely, it's better to give time to understand someone or something before having an opinion.
Well said, Lisa. This phrase reminds us to be open-minded and not make quick decisions based on appearances.
Thanks for explaining this phrase, Eric. It's a valuable lesson for everyone.
You're welcome, Lisa. It's always good to explain English words to our listeners in a simple way.
I couldn't agree more. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Simply Explained English.
We hope you found our explanations helpful and that you're feeling more confident in your English skills.
Remember, practice makes perfect, so keep using the words and phrases you've learned in your everyday conversations.
Stay tuned for more episodes where we'll continue to simplify the complexities of the English language.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Amber, and I'll be your host for today's podcast in Lisa's place.
And I'm Eric.
And together, we're here to make learning English simple and fun.
Whether you're a beginner or looking to brush up on your language skills, you're in the right place.
In each episode, we'll break down English words and phrases into easy-to-understand explanations.
In our podcast, we use everything from everyday vocabulary to common idioms.
So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the fascinating world of English together. Okay, Eric, please tell us the words today.
Okay, Amber. The first word today is to wonder. Then we will continue with to judge. And enormous. Then calm down. And the final one is to hit the books.
Okay, let's continue with our first word.
Our first word is to wonder.
To wonder.
To wonder. To wonder means to have a question or to think about something with curiosity.
So when you're curious or thinking about something but don't know the answer.
Exactly. For example, if you see a beautiful bird flying in the sky, you might wonder what type of bird it is or where it's going.
I see. Can you provide an example dialogue using the word to wonder?
Did you ever wonder why the sky is blue, Tom?
Yeah, I did. I think it has something to do with the way sunlight interacts with the Earth's atmosphere.
That's really interesting. I always wonder about things like that.
Me too. It's fun to find out new things.
That was a nice chat between Anna and Tom. They were both curious about why the sky was blue.
Yeah, I liked it too. Wondering is a great way to start learning something new. Amber, do Do you ever wonder about things like Anna?
Yes, I do. Sometimes I wonder how different foods taste in other countries. What about you, Eric?
I often wonder about space and all the stars in the sky. The universe is so big and mysterious.
That's fascinating. Wondering about things is good because it means you're thinking and asking questions.
Absolutely. Wondering is the first step to learning more about the world. Conversations like the one between Anna and Tom can make people want to find out the answer.
I agree. When you wonder about something, you can always research it to find out more. Just like Tom mentioned about the sky being blue.
That's right. Well, I think we've had a good talk about to wonder. Now let's move on to the next word. The next word is to judge.
To judge.
To judge.
Oh, that's an important one. When we judge, it means we have an opinion or make a decision about something or someone.
Yes, sometimes judging can happen too quickly without knowing all the details. It's better to understand fully first.
Great point, Eric. Let's do an example dialogue to show to judge in a situation.
Sounds good. Let's start.
Mike, did you hear about the new student in our class?
Yes, I did. Some people are judging her because she's quiet and doesn't talk much.
That's not fair. We shouldn't judge her without getting to know her. Maybe she's just shy.
You're right, Sarah. It's better to talk to her and learn more about her before judging about her.
That conversation between Sarah and Mike shows how some people might judge too quickly.
Yes, it's a good reminder to be more understanding and not judge someone without knowing their story.
Exactly. Eric, was there someone who judged you too quickly?
Yes. Once someone thought I was not good at sports because I'm quiet. But they were surprised when we played soccer. I played very well. It was not what they expected.
That's a great example of why we shouldn't judge others. Over time, I've learned that everyone has something special about them.
True, Amber. We can change our minds about someone after we get to know them.
And sometimes we should remember not to judge things too quickly, like a new food or a new place.
Absolutely. When we keep an open mind, we can better understand and value the differences around us.
Well said, Eric. It's better to learn more and judge less in life.
I agree. It's been a good discussion about to judge. Now let's move on to the next word. The next word is enormous.
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 Enormous is a fun word. It means something very big, huge, and much larger than usual.
That's right, Amber. When something is enormous, it's so big that it can be surprising or impressive.
Let's give an example of dialogue to help our listeners understand. I'll be Lucy and you can be Mark.
Sounds good to me.
Mark, have you seen the new building in downtown?
Yes, I have. It's enormous. I couldn't believe how tall it was.
Me too. I read it has over 50 floors. Can you imagine that?
It's incredible. Such an enormous building must have a great view from the top, Lucy.
That was an interesting conversation about the new building. Lucy and Mark both think the building is enormous.
Yes, they were impressed by the size of the building. Amber, have you ever seen something enormous?
Yes, I have. Once, I saw an enormous elephant at a wildlife park. It was the biggest animal I've ever seen. How about you, Eric?
For me, I saw an enormous mountain while I was on a trip. When I stood at the base and looked up, it felt like I touched the sky.
Wow, both the elephant and the mountain sound amazing. Enormous things can really make us feel small, can't they?
They sure can. It's a powerful word to describe everything that is much bigger than what we see.
That's true. And what about things that aren't physical objects? Can they be enormous too?
Yes. For example, you could say that someone has an enormous appetite. It means he eats a lot. Or the enormous love they have for their families.
That's a good point. It shows that enormous can be used to describe more than just physical size.
Exactly. It's a useful word for emphasizing something on a large scale.
I agree. It's also a fun word to say, isn't it? It has a big, powerful sound that matches its meaning. Enormous. Yes, it sounds very powerful.
You're right. It's a great word to use when you want to make a strong impression or describe something really big.
I agree. Okay, it's been a great conversation, Eric. Let's move on to the next word.
The next word is to calm down.
To calm down.
To calm down.
To calm down is a very useful phrase. It means to become less upset, less excited, or less angry. It's like becoming peaceful again after being upset.
Exactly, Amber. When someone is very angry or upset, they may need to take a moment to calm down before they can think clearly.
Let's do a sample dialogue to show our listeners how to calm down can be used.
All right, let's go for it.
Mia, I can't find my phone anywhere. I think I lost it.
Joe, let's try to calm down first. Maybe you just forgot where you put it.
You're right. I'm really upset right now. I'll take a deep breath and try to remember where I last saw it.
That's a good idea. After you calm down, let's look for it together.
That was a great example. It shows how taking a moment to calm down can really help when you're feeling upset.
Yes, Mia told Joe that if she calmed down, it would be easier to find a solution. Amber, have you ever been in a situation where you needed to calm down?
Oh, yes. Sometimes when I'm really worried about something, like a big exam, I need to calm down and focus.
That's a good point. We can think more clearly and make better choices when we calm down. What are some good ways to calm down when you're feeling stressed, Amber?
Well, taking deep breaths can be really helpful. Also, doing something relaxing like listening to music or taking a walk can make you feel calmer.
Those are great ideas. I find that talking to a friend or family member can also help me calm down when I'm feeling upset.
That's so true. Talking about your problems with someone can help you feel a lot better and happier.
Absolutely. It's important to remember that everyone feels stressed or upset sometimes, and it's okay to take a moment to calm down.
I couldn't agree more. Learning how to calm down is an important skill that can help us in many situations in our lives.
Well said, Amber. I hope our listeners will remember to take a deep breath and calm down when they're feeling anxious or upset.
Me too, Eric. It's a simple but powerful thing we can all do for ourselves. And on that note, I think it's time for us to move on to the next word.
Sounds good. Let's move on to the last word. The last word is to hit the books.
To hit the books.
To hit the books.
To hit the books is an informal phrase that means to study hard, especially for an exam or test.
That's right. It's like when you sit down with your textbooks, notebooks, and study materials to prepare for an exam or learn something new.
So it's about studying hard.
Exactly. When you decide to understand a subject better, you hit the books. It's a way to improve your knowledge and skills.
Okay, let's have a sample dialogue using the phrase, hit the books, so that our listeners can better understand it.
Hey, Sophie. What are you doing here on a Saturday?
I have a big history exam on Monday, so I need to hit the books this weekend.
Oh, I understand. Good luck with your studies. I should probably hit the books too.
That's a great example, Eric. It shows how the phrase is used in a casual conversation between friends.
Definitely. I like how it emphasizes the importance of studying hard and focusing on learning. Do you think it's important, Amber?
Absolutely. If you want to do well in school or learn new things, you should hit the books. It takes time and effort, but it's worth it.
I agree. It's not always easy to sit down and study, but it's necessary for success. What are some good ways to motivate yourself to hit the books?
Well, to set goals for yourself can be really helpful. For example, you could say, I'll study for 1 hour and then I'll reward myself with a snack or a break.
That's a great idea. A lot of people find it easier to study when they break it up into parts. Giving yourself rewards can help you stay motivated.
Another good tip is to find a quiet, comfortable place to study, like the library or a silent corner at home.
That's so true. It's harder to concentrate when there is a lot of noise or other things around you. A good study place can make a big difference.
It really can. Well, I think we've covered the phrase hit the books quite well. It's useful for our listeners to learn.
Definitely. I hope our listeners will remember to hit the books when they need to study or learn something new.
Agreed. Studying hard is an important part of education and personal growth. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up this podcast. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Simply Explained English. We hope you enjoyed learning about some new words and phrases with us.
Remember, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Stay tuned for more episodes, where we'll continue to explore the English language together.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep practicing your English.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.